My name's Barra, MacRuari. I'm Strategic Director of Place for Bristol. I've been doing this job for about 14 months. Before that, I came from Bradford, a city in the north of England, about the same size, very different profile of wealth, very different issues, etc. I'm an architect, I'm a city planner, and that's enough about me. What I want to do is I want to talk about what I call place balancing. And I'm going to just set out a little bit of history of Bristol, and then I'm going to kind of talk about what I try and achieve within the department. So, I'm strategic at Place. I'm in charge of, the planning of the city, the sustainable development of the city, the transport of the city, energy, climate, whole gamut of stuff, culture, the whole lot. So this week, really, I'm not an academic. I'm definitely a practitioner, but I do have a view. I'm going to share that view with you. In terms of, what's the week like so far? Well, it began this week looking at the shaping of a transformative action that this city will bring to the Congress of Parties at the UN Climate Change Congress in Paris at the end of December. I've just come across a parking issue where, white van is parking on one of our cycling routes. I tackled that issue yesterday as well as I cycled here, but I walked here today, and the chap in the van, a different van, said, well, there's nowhere else to park. And so, on the way over, I thought I'd take 5 minutes and try and find out, is there actually anywhere for light vehicles to park? And I think we've got that wrong. There isn't in that particular location, so that's another interesting issue. Yesterday afternoon, I cycled out to meet a community group who are trying to develop a public sector hub in their own locality, an area which has lost a lot of its public services, and it's trying to re-establish them. This morning, I had to try and write a piece in relation to ethics and the development of ethics as we try to shift the position of local government. And then the other evening, we talked about the delivery of 89,000 new households in this region by 2036. So it's a very broad range of issues. Oh, and amongst that, we had a big discussion in relation to how we would approach an exhibition in the city, which talks about death and the passage of life. So it's a very mixed bag of trying to manage, make, and develop a city. So in all of that, what I'm trying to do is do this. And that's not justice, that's balance. And it's a really, really big and important part of it. Because at the heart of that balance is these little people here. And, the kind of, they always fall off. There's another 10 down here, actually. But these little people here are often heavily outweighed by intervention. And it's a really tricky balance to try and manage the economy, shape its development, and kind of hold in balance the reason why we're all actually here collectively as citizens. And I'm constantly held to account for that through many, many audiences from many, many places. The really rich thing about Bristol is the fact that it is a constellation of leaders. The reason why we're European Green Capital is that it is 40 years of making, well beyond my time. I've come here off the back of that. I thought it was a good place to come. Huge amount of leadership in localities, in city leadership, in lobbying and campaigning, has really shaped the nature of what this city is, and it's an interesting now journey as to move on. One of the richest aspects of it is the fact that what Bristolians, and many of them, and Bristolians are a wide and varied lot, but overarching, there is this overriding characteristic of unorthodoxy, even in terms of its economy, in terms of its application to its city. Now, it has a long and often rich and difficult past as well. Historically, it's at the confluence of two rivers, the Avon and the Frome. And I believe some of you have gone on a trip around the harbour. And the harbour is a really interesting asset and aspect to the city, specifically in transportation terms and how you cross and how it shapes a kind of north and south, east and west in relation to the city, and how we constantly bridge that position in the city. I'm very interested in mobility, and what I mean by mobility is all aspects of that, specifically social mobility within the city. It's phenomenally important, so the whole city works as an entity. Putting the cut in and actually ensuring that we could use the floating harbour. So the River Avon is tidal, so ensuring that there was actually an ability to create a floating harbour to load and unload within the city to maximise the harbour nature of the city is a phenomenally big move. I just want to draw your attention to this little square, which you may have seen as, is this it? Let's hope. Here, Queen's Square here. Just keep an eye on that, and there's a constant seam all the way through. And let's just look at how that square develops, because the parking issue I had was based in that square on the way over. Okay, so that's one of our really historic and precious places in the city, and we're trying to be quite relaxed about how it's used. So we can see that the city continually develops, and you'll see many a plan like this around the whole of Europe. You know, it industrialises, it develops, the square is laid out, the rest of the city grows and continues to grow and expand. And the city is doing well. Doing well? Well, it's doing well, it's growing. There's a lot of interest in the city. It's doing well, a lot of people want to be here. It's not doing well on affordability. You know, house prices are raging ahead. It's not affordable for the vast majority of people who are seeking to have a home, and there's a real gap in terms of housing, financing and funding to make affordability a reality for people. So it had a history, it had a very big industrial past, and 40 years of work have gone in to re-inhabiting that post its industrial use and into a newer use. It's had its tricky points, and at one point clearly there was a major network proposed through the city, and a huge amount of activism established itself in the city to save it from that. And those activists are still here in the city, those lobbyists are still here, and that dialogue is still rich within the city. And we have a very, I think, articulated city. It understands what it is to be livable and how it's trying to achieve that. And you'll note Queen's Square here, but just look the way Queen's Square has just changed a little bit. Something's happening in the middle. So we'll pick that up here in this slide here. So you'll see where that beautiful formal square actually has a couple of roads going through it here. Okay. And out and then up as well. So, as you know and you've seen in many, many cities, it changes. But it was tamed back. It was tamed back successfully. We are here actually. And you'll see that this route here is gone, and this route here is gone, and this route here is gone. And it is much more livable and much more walkable. So let's just look at what that looks like today. So hold that picture and we move to here. So you'll see that it has been won back by many people, and actually the city has been reformed in some parts. But wholly this here as a massive public space has been reshaped and brought back. Now my team constantly talk to me, and those of you who've heard me speak before will say that their frustration is the fact that they're all challenged that they haven't built grand project, of a phenomenal scale. But what they have always tried to do is constantly reshape and try and get a win out of every project, whether that is cooling buildings by the harbour side through the water, whether that is maintaining a street frontage as you walk across the harbour. And they'll always point and say, well, that was a win, and that's a collective win that we have all made, along with everybody else in the city that's actually tried to achieve it. So I'm constantly trying to, many, many little wins will get us a big purchase in the city as we move forward. So part of that here has culminated really in the fact that, the city has won this phenomenal honour to be the European Green Capital, supported by a tremendous and kind of world-leading Green Capital Partnership, which is, I think, if any of the Green Capital Partnership in the room, they'll probably correct me, I think it's about 500, maybe even 800 groups associated with that now, but it's very much within the heart of the city. And even these cranes here, they were, George may have told you this story, the mayor, that the council sold them, a group rescued them, and then they sold them back to the council. And it's quite easy to knock a second tier of government because it's so large and it does everything, doesn't it? It does, it'll sort out, you register your birth, and you register your death, and everything in between kind of touches part of that kind of local governance. However, the city is trying its best, I think. Part of that trying its best is making sure that it is accessible, people can move around it, it's connected. The ferries are a very important part of that. The routeways, the walkways, life within the city, the mix within the city, the connections that people are made, using the city around all of its clock, its week, its weekend, its evening. The whole thing is fundamental in ensuring that that city is balanced, but also that people can access it. One of the really big things that has occurred, I think, which is a phenomenal piece of creating livability, is creating a flat charge for the inner zone of a bus fare of £1.50. And that's actually just been really helpful in actually getting a much bigger patronage of buses within the city and actually taking out an awful lot of trips. We have over 50,000 commuter trips every year that come in, and not every year, every day. If only it was every year. 50,000 commuter trips that come in every day, and they travel probably about 3 miles to do that. So it's not much. It's very walkable, it's very cyclable, it's very doable for most. So this again is one of those really interesting kind of pieces of just winning back this city. So I'm just going to point to something here, and you'll notice this here. At one point along this strip, the harbour, which is on this side, wasn't seen to be of value. So these buildings largely face the other way. And then you'll see as you walk around the harbour, they've started to break out back to the waterfront over years and years. So again, this kind of winning back has occurred. And it's not always successful everywhere. You can't, you don't win all battles, but kind of what I'm always trying to get the team into the next 10 years of their work is actually to win the war. And that's the most important aspect. Some things will be won, some things will be lost. And fundamentally, there's a whole wide range of users in here. It is a natural environment. We've seen a great uplift in terms of the how the natural environment has been used within the city by our wildlife. It has become a waterway that actually people can actively use for leisure and also for the business of moving around the city. Anchor institutions are phenomenally important. This is one of them, Watershed, along with the Hospitals Trust, which runs 8 hospitals across the city as a whole, but at a different scale. The Watershed is a small organisation, which we are in here, housing a debate, housing a network. The hospital has 8,000 people and affects every part of the health of the city. But they're 2 key anchor institutions, and again, leaders in what they do, and that's a phenomenally important aspect of it. We ourselves, I'll just get back, we ourselves here, MShed was a museum that the council self-established, and in that museum it tried to tackle some of the issues that faced the city over its past, the issues of ethnicity, the issues of race, the issues of riot, all key issues from the city again. And this is a shot from, I think, the Harbour Festival as well, people using the edge here. And the edge does create a lot of debate, how we actually use the edge and how people access that edge and how we protect people from that edge. Because if you just look at this photograph, that edge is of a particular demography, and it is an interesting edge, the edge between what is the land side and the water side, and how people can blur amongst it and how people are protected from it. And we've had a number of accidents. Unfortunately, we had a death, and it's a constant debate in the city about how you manage the edge of the city. Now, there's numbers of edges. This is not one of my drawings. This is in from my daughter's school, and I went to them because the European Green Capital 2015 has a whole push through the schools of talking about sustainability and their environment in the city, and I went to hear one of their little gigs, and the backdrop that they all sung to was a drawing that they made. So unfortunately, my daughter he's got a parent, kind of get out of the way, and I'll photograph the image you've done at the back. But actually, what's really quite rich about this is the fact that this is how in a city which has had great leadership and has tried really innovative things and has pushed really hard, and it is European Green Capital, that actually this is how a bunch of kids actually do see a lot of their city, and they can see the passage across from their school, across the neighbourhood and the trees, and how it works and the amount of smog and congestion. So it's a very real position for them. So putting that all together, this is what my department tries to do, and it's a very big ambition, to build better lives and better places by helping others to succeed. And that can be really challenged, like, well, how have you helped me? And what are you doing for us? And how do you actually lead on all of those things? And come back to that situation as to how do you actually achieve that level of balance? Especially when the issue of the power of the economy, when we've returned out of recession, as a real big push, and people want to get things done, and they want to get it done really quite fast. So what I lean on is coming all the way back to Rem Koolhaas's kind of scales. This idea of scale, the idea of balance, the idea of scale, and how we work is tremendously important. So often what's put to me, and anybody that works within this audience in my role will always say, well, your team work in silos. Well, actually, yeah, I've got a curator, and they're definitely not the same skill base as the person who's an economist, or actually the person who's a traffic engineer, or actually the person who works in terms of events. They're phenomenally different people. They do phenomenally different things. And they try to come together, and the canvas is the city to try and create things and do things. So I always try and use this idea of scale and how we can work and what we should try and achieve. And bringing people that on one day they're talking about the transformation of a high-speed electric line to London, and also talking about, the balloon fiesta, is it's a broad body of skills. So what I'm constantly trying to get to develop is that the everyday things should be good, and that we actually do the right small things, the right big things, the right huge things, and indeed the massive things. But then there's also the once-in-a-lifetime things, and we need to be able to perform on all those levels, and they're fundamentally important. So on the very kind of everyday things, the streets should be safe. Kids should be able to go at will. They should be able to play out. We shouldn't have a huge fear. We've got a great local group playing out, and we help and try to enable the closing of local streets so people can use that street, and neighbourhoods pull their cars out, and kids and families go and meet each other, have a cup of tea. And this group, Playing Out, has a fantastic website, which is a resource for the city and other cities in the country just to download. And you can print off your poster, you can print off your windshield leaflet. You can just access. Making the city special, which is actually quite a big thing. In making sure that it's special, making sure that it's special on a Sunday, making sure that you can be a tourist in your own city, that you don't have to leave, that you can enjoy. Phenomenal. The Blue Side, created by a local resident, was my first project when I moved in here about a year ago, and what the team said to me was, we got this blue slide. Have we now? What's that all about then? And I realised, if this isn't delivered, there'll be a bit of a hoo-ha, but actually, also people will be let down. But it was quite interesting. It was put out as a project. I think it was it was £32,000 of open source funding, crowdsourced funding, I should say, was got for it. And then it was, okay, city, put it on. Well, that £32,000 of funding paid for that. Paid for the blue and the slide and the hail bales and everything else. But actually, the issue then we faced was, managing Spider-Man at the top of the slide and the other 100,000 people within the city. And that's again, it comes back to that kind of the balance, is the fact that if you say no, you're seen as, the first thing is, it's just health and safety gone mad, isn't it? Bureaucrats, they just want to let anybody slide down a street. Yeah, well, I'm very happy for people to slide down the street. Often on Park Street you see people bombing down on skateboards in the middle of the street, which which isn't that safe at all. I don't condone it in any shape or form, because there's a real fear, and it's always, when you look at it, it is always young men who are about 18, 19, and they're bombing down it at high speed. And there's an edge there, and it's kind of like there's a gender balance in the city as well. It's always the same. And I'm usually pedalling up it out of breath trying to get home. So how you manage that, and how you actually make sure that city is inclusive and accessible, and it achieves its balance in terms of how people can access and use it, is phenomenally important. And the city is a great work in progress. The introduction of 20 miles an hour. I was talking to what I'd loosely determine a children's group, who are talking about, well, what have you done for children? And I said, well, introducing 20 mile an hour speed limits across the majority of the city has been a big shift. But the fundamental issue with it is the fact that when you get into your car in this city and you decide to drive at 20 rather than deciding to drive at 30, it's a conscious decision that you have to make, because every car, any modern car, will get you up to the speed of 30 in seconds. If we look at the engineering of our roundabouts, for example, those things that actually people can brake really hard on them. The braking capability of a car can get you around a roundabout probably at 50, 60 miles an hour, no problem. You can hear it screech, they can hold you. So the whole pace and the speed of the city in engineering terms has gone up and up and up and up, and you have to manage it back down. So within all of that, we've got a pilot looking at driverless cars, and look at that beast. But that beast there is full of technology, and it's trying to understand how you could actually move people around the city in a driverless manner. We have put together in really quite interestingly within the city, we bought a load of ductwork in a very entrepreneurial way, and we have some super fast kit within it, fibre. And actually the city is a test bed in terms of what I would call it could slip into that smarter city, which couldn't slip into the kind of dumber city. And it's about actually using that test bed for companies around the world to come and actually use it to understand how you can use an open mesh within the city for communications and information sharing, and then how you can actually manage the city as well. But that has to be smart, as in smart for the citizens. It is not about Big Brother. There are issues of privacy, there's issues of connectivity, there's all of these issues. At another very big scale, when we move into the very huge scale, the city has sought, and over a long period of time, to set up a very strong relationship to its energy supply and energy distribution. So this is energy creation, owned by the city, not just this one, but we've got 5 megawatts, and we've done a huge PV rollout across the city, and a rollout with local communities as well, using our roofs as assets for the communities. But fundamentally here, in relation to Bristol Energy, there are 6 big energy companies in the country. When the breakup of energy happened in this country, and it went regional, there's 6 big energy companies. And there's a really big question out there: do people get a fair deal on their energy? Well, energy is really important. When you think about the heating of our environment and the cooling of our environment, and yesterday 30 degrees. One of the little problems of the week yesterday was the fact that our bridges weren't designed for 30 degrees. So if we open a bridge at 30 degrees, can you close a bridge at 30 degrees? Because actually climate change is here, it is now. And some of our bridges, they're 150 years old. They definitely weren't designed to be sitting around in 30 degrees sweltering sun, and then opened when a ferry needs to pass through. So there's a real issue there about the recreation of the infrastructure. We know that within this city, climate change by 2030 is a significant issue, and something we have to plan for. At a very big scale, we've set up an enterprise area in the city here, and this is the home to our arena. This is the Temple Meads train station, which will link all the way out, I should say this way. We're not building a new railway, this way, out to London with high-speed rail. And that high-speed rail is a very important connection to the city. It brings us 20 minutes nearer to London, also brings London 20 minutes nearer to us. Will also actually increase a tremendous pressure on, I think, house prices And again, that needs to be held in balance and how we actually achieve them. These are really, really big, difficult problems, very difficult problems in ensuring that people have a role. So on a very, very massive scale, clearly we work kind of on a huge scale in terms of local planning, as you'd expect any city to do. But things that we have on at the moment, and this is just a kind of a snapshot working across from a future trajectory looking towards 2065, working with Rockefeller in relation to resilient city, all the way down to, as I've just shown, a joint spatial plan 2036 into a housing strategy. And there is an awful lot of work going on in the city trying to shape its future path. Crucially, it's trying to link it all together, and they all make sense with each other. They all have different time zones, they all have different outcomes, but they have to come together to try and shape one massive big city. And I think this is from North America. But it's just a shot I show that it can often be this kind of life of public leadership in the fact that there can be an awful lot of what I'd call scrapping, going on, and it's difficult. People want to hold power and shape their view of the world, and that's okay. There's passion in there, but actually, people just walk on by, and they're not that interested really. So, in terms of this idea of scales of place, fundamental, how you actually bridge those scales, and how you, as a senior public leader, actually try and bridge those skills and keep ahead. My personal ambition is try and keep on top of my technical knowledge, and be able to bridge those scales all the time as your subjects constantly grow. So, in summary, my thoughts beyond practitioner is that this is what we are, and we talk about placemaking. It's a societal action. You definitely need to identify the issues. You definitely apply with the interventions at the right scale, have the outcome, and we must think about it in three distinct but interrelated sub-places. Those being the geographic, economic and sociological place. Now clearly it is a holistic activity, and it's really quite hard. A lot of it's been lost by actually creating holistic city makers. It's phenomenal that actually in this country, after years of people quietly calling themselves urbanists, they felt proud enough to go out and say they were urbanists. It's kind of like happened in the green agenda as well. People hugged trees for many a year quietly, and then suddenly it is the right thing to do. And we've come back to love the city all the way since 1998, and the Urban Task Force, a phenomenal piece of work that actually brought us back to the city. So in 2009, I set about kind of trying to put this together. And actually, since 2009, I haven't really come back to it till I was asked to put this kind of talk together. So it spurred me to have another thought. But at that point in time, what I was thinking was coming back to this idea of balancing, that there are so many issues and there are so many interventions. And actually, it's really quite hard to try and find that balance in city leadership. But there is a fundamental issue in terms of the key principles of governance, trust, skills, equity, and reciprocity. Because unless you give and give back, it just doesn't work. There's a human condition there. But fundamental across all of this, and when I talked about the 40 years of activity and the 40 years of pace, was actually that on the day, the year, the hour, and even in terms of the minute of time, it is fundamental how we work through time. And if we don't take these kind of key principles and lock them in to our model, we will not drive the sustainability of the city. Thank you very much.